If you find that your eyes are watering or you're having challenges maintaining, looking at this thing for a while because it's painful, that light is too bright and you do not want to damage your retina. So you don't want to gaze at the sun, refusing to blink, and burn your retina. That's actually possible to do. You don't want to do that. You have a proper blink reflex installed in you since birth. And if you feel like something's too bright and you need to blink, it means you need to blink, that it's too much light. So please don't beam your eyes with really bright light. But blue light, in particular blue light and yellow light coming from sunlight, is ideal. If you're going to get it from artificial light because you can't get enough sunlight, well then artificial lights that are rich in blue wavelengths are going to be ideal for setting this mechanism. A lot of people will say, I should be wearing blue blockers throughout the day. No, that's the exact wrong thing. If you're going to use blue blockers, we can talk about that. That should be reserved for late in the evening because light suppresses melatonin. I've been asked many times before about this pineal gland, and there are a lot of ancient practices that map to some of the things that I'm saying, and people always say, I heard that sunlight is great for the pineal. Well, perhaps, but we have to be careful about that phrase. Sunlight inhibits the pineal. It prevents it from releasing melatonin. Darkness allows the pineal to release melatonin. So the pineal is not the gland or the organ of sunlight. It is the gland of darkness. In fact, melatonin can be thought of as a sleepiness signal that's correlated with darkness. So get up each morning, try and get outside. I know that can be challenging for people, but anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes of sunlight exposure is going to work well for most people. And you want to do this on a regular basis. And you don't have to do it exactly at sunrise. I realize I'm repeating myself, but somehow, despite barking at people about this for a couple years now, I keep getting the same questions. And somehow it hasn't been sinking in, which could be related to some circadian disorder. I'm just kidding. If it's not sinking in, it's probably that I'm not being effective in communicating the information. But get that bright light early in the day from sunlight. And if you can't get it from sunlight, get it from artificial light. What kinds of artificial lights will work? Well, there are these sunrise simulators, but the ring lights that people use for selfies and this sort of thing, for posting on Instagram, those generate a lot of blue light. If you want to get experimental about this, there's a free app. I have no relationship to the app, but it's a great app called Light Meter that you can use your phone and you can measure the amount of photon energy in your environment. And it's kind of a fun experiment to do. You can go outside in the morning and you'll see that there's 10,000, 20,000 lux, even though it might seem like it's kind of dim or there's tree cover or cloud cover. You go inside and you shine that an artificial light at your phone, press the button on Light Meter, and you'll find that it's only 500 or 1,000 lux. And you realize that even though it seems really bright, the artificial light is very condensed, whereas the outside light is scattered in the atmosphere. And so you can think that you're not getting much sunlight, but you're actually getting much more outside. So get outside, get that sunlight early in the day, and try and do it on a consistent basis. If you can't do it every day or you sleep through this period of the early day, low solar angle, don't worry about it. These systems in the body, these hormone systems and neurotransmitter systems that make you awake at certain periods of the day and sleepy at other times are operating by averaging when you view the brightest light. Now, that can immediately tell us that what most people are doing is terrible. They're waking up and they're looking at their phone, which isn't triggering activation of these cells in the eye and the central circadian clock. Then a few hours later, they might get in their car with sunglasses and drive. Now, a note about sunglasses and prescription lenses. Absolutely never, ever, ever compromise safety for the sorts of things I'm talking about. So if you need to wear sunglasses for safety reasons, wear them. Absolutely, if you wear prescription lenses or contacts, wear them. They won't filter out the wavelengths of light that are necessary for setting these central clocks. So safety first, of course. If you have a retinal degenerative disorder, retinitis pigmentosa, macular degeneration, or glaucoma, or those run in your family, you want to avoid excessively bright light all the time. You want to be very cautious about that. You're going to want to get your light exposure through seeing dimmer light, including sunlight, but for longer periods of time, perhaps. You might immediately ask, what about low vision or blind people? How do they set these central clocks? Well, turns out that low vision and blind people, most of them, provided they still have eyes, that the eyes weren't removed because of a burn or tumor or something like that, still maintain these neurons that set the circadian clock, which brings me to a really important point. It's not about seeing and perceiving the sun. This is a subconscious mechanism by which these neurons, which are called melanopsin ganglion cells, these neurons set your central clocks by getting activated by the particular wavelengths of light that are present in the atmosphere, even coming through cloud cover. And you don't need to see or perceive the sun in order to get this mechanism to start. Now, it's such a vitally important mechanism because it dictates how well and what time you will want to fall asleep later in the day. So for those of you that are night owls and you insist that you're a night owl and you have the genetic polymorphism that makes you a night owl, you may very well have that genetic polymorphism, those genes that make you want to stay up late and wake up late. But chances are about half of you that think that you're night owls are just not getting enough sunlight early in the day. So viewing light early in the day, ideally sunlight, is key for establishing healthy sleep-wake rhythms and for allowing you to fall asleep easily at night. Now, it's not going to make sure that all that happens every single time, but it is the foundation of proper sleep and what we call circadian health. It governs metabolism and so many other things that are supposed to exist on a regular 24-hour cycle. Some of you, many of you, might be asking, what else can help set this rhythm? Well, it turns out that light is what we call the primary Zeitgeber, the time giver. But other things can help establish this rhythm of cortisol followed by melatonin 12 to 16 hours later as well. The other things besides light are timing of food intake, timing of exercise, as well as various drugs or chemicals that one might ingest. Not illegal drugs, although those will impact circadian mechanisms as well. But the reason we focus so heavily on light is that light is the main way that the central clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, was supposed to be set. We know that because it's the only direct input to the clock. These neurons in the eye that are also part of the brain that we call melanopsin ganglion cells that not so incidentally were discovered by my friend and colleague David Burson at Brown University and others, Samer Hattar, Qinghua Yao, etc., worked out the mechanisms, the molecular mechanisms, but it was really David Burson that discovered these incredibly fascinating these are cells that aren't important for sight like pattern vision, but are for setting our clocks. David's really credited with making that discovery. Those cells are the main way and the only direct way to set the clock. In fact, it's fair to say that light viewed by these melanopsin cells, particular sunlight, is 1,000 to 10,000 times more effective than, say, getting up in darkness and just exercising. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't exercise early in the day in darkness if that's what you like to do. It will have somewhat an effect on raising your wakefulness early in the day and setting these rhythms. And this is because of some other pathways. For the aficionados out there who want to know more neuroscience, here's how it goes. You've got this clock above the roof of your mouth that churns out this 24-hour rhythm and is communicated to all the other organs and tissues of your body. But there's another structure, has a cool name. It's called the intergeniculate leaflet, which sits a few millimeters away in the brain, and it's involved in regulating the clock output through what's called non-photic, non-light type influences like exercise and feeding, etc. So